now to Ohio Congressman Mike Turner, the top Republican on the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman Turner, good to have you here in person.
Thank you. Yes, it's great to be here.
So just yesterday, the Director of National Intelligence, Avril Haines, said that Russia was perhaps struggling to keep up with the amount of munitions that it's using in this war in Ukraine. The cold weather is slowing combat. The Secretary of State, though, didn't really give hope for diplomacy at this moment. Given what you know, when will this war end?
Well, the one thing that we know is that the gains that Ukraine is making are real. They're real on the battlefield. They're real in the support that they have around the world with democracies and on the floor of the United Nations in condemning this aggression by Russia. But Ukraine really has to be the one that decides that if, when, and how negotiations are entered into. And at this point, they're battling for their country. They're losing lives for democracy. President Zelensky says, and I was just in Ukraine just before the elections, he says openly, he understands that he's the front lines for democracy, and he's fighting an authoritarian regime. And I think, obviously Russia has to reevaluate how they look at this conflict and how Putin looks at what he has started.
So you agree with the administration on this?
I agree absolutely that this is something where, this is a war of aggression that Russia needs to reevaluate and to withdraw from Ukraine.
You've said, because you are poised to run the Intelligence Committee, since you are the top Republican, when Republicans take control in January. Is this going to be an area where, as you promised, you can take politics out of it and actually work across the aisle? And what does that mean? Right.
So, when we went on a bipartisan trip to deliver to President Zelensky a message that there's bipartisan support for Ukraine. I think there's a number of issues that we're going to be working on a bipartisan basis. What should the United States policy be? How do we make certain that I serve on the Armed Services Committee and the Intelligence Committee. How do we make certain that they get the weapon systems that they need? How do we hold together this world alliance that we have, where the world is condemning what Russia's doing? And of course, the expansion of NATO. We're looking forward to Sweden and Finland joining NATO, which is the opposite of what Putin believed he was going to achieve in attacking Ukraine. He now sees the expansion by two valuable partners with great military capabilities joining NATO.
I want to show our viewers some pretty extraordinary video that the Pentagon unveiled this week, a B-21 Raider. It's the first U.S. nuclear stealth bomber aircraft in more than 30 years. And it's being packaged as this deterrent to China. How concerned are you about the pace of Beijing's nuclear development?
Extremely. And I want to commend the administration, because they've been very forward-leading in releasing and declassifying information about what China is doing. They are expanding their nuclear weapons capabilities, their ICBMs that are targeting the United States. This plane is incredibly important. I served as chair of the Air and Land Subcommittee as we, on a classified basis, began the process of working on this plane. And it gives us an additional balance, because it's an additional delivery vehicle, additional way to combat what China's doing.
To drop nuclear weapons.
To cause people not to drop nuclear weapons. I mean, that's what's so...
It's really the deterrent.
Right. It is to make certain that the balance of power is there, so that people understand that the cost is just too great. When China is expanding their nuclear weapons, they're looking at the United States. If we blink, if we don't respond, then they assume that they can get first strike capabilities that not only holds us at bay, but really holds us at risk, because then you have the leader of a nuclear power that might make that miscalculation and, of course, cost unfathomable lives.